There we go. Of course, we have to do the tweet. We've got to tweet.
Got to tweet. Because that's where people can find you at this moment in time. That is pretty much your only online existence, right?
At the current moment, yeah, because I'm also sitting on a 30-day with Facebook right before the holidays too, which is great.
What did you do?
I've been a very spicy boy with the chuds on Facebook in my local news comment section. Especially considering what's been going on with Berkeley County School Board recently, which is where I live in South Carolina. It's a shit show. And then also my Congresswoman, Nancy Mace, out there trying to be like, oh, I dunked on Alejandro Calabreo today in Congress. And it's like, because apparently she was, Alejandro was there in Congress talking about like violent tweets and rhetoric. And then all of a sudden Nancy's like, oh, we're going to show you some of your tweets, Alejandro. And it's like, bro, Nancy, you hired this clown named CJ Westfield from Ladston to be your political consultant, and he was literally running around like JQing and calling for transgenocide on fucking Facebook and Twitter. Like, shut the fuck up, woman. Like, what are you talking about? Oh God, fucking Nancy Mace.
And for people who don't know, like when you were doing streams, you were generally mostly focused on like local politics. You talked about working class issues. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. So I was doing like politics stream up until August, and then a case of like the yips, as they say, came aboard, which is like extreme anxiety and. Anyways, so yeah, what it is every time I stream, like I not only talk about the national stories, but I also try to talk about my local shit, right? I also try and talk about the stories of where I live, because a lot of things, and especially like that I try to harp on when I speak about organizing, is yes, national stories are important, but the local county and sheriff and city council are going to do more damage to you than the federal government is. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that right now with the school boards. I mean, look what our boy Alec Gunner just had to go and deal with in Ohio, mm-hmm. right? With them passing the trans bans and everything. That's not the governor. That's a fucking education board from like locally county level to maybe state level officials, right? That's not the feds. So like that's one thing I try to like get people on, especially really I have to tip a hat and genuflect to the queen. Mika Gadsden, who's here in Charleston, South Carolina, and she runs Monday through Friday on Twitch and does nothing but Charleston, South Carolina news, right? That's all she focuses on. And then she'll connect the national stories if they affect us here on the local level. But she's my local activist and news plug, mm-hmm. right? But that's always been my kind of like kick, right? When I was living in Tampa, Florida, I did nothing but Tampa, Florida news. And there was a lot there, especially with BLM, 2020, COVID. I got a buddy of mine, Justin Garcia, who just got named as Axios's like top local reporters for the month or something like that.
Yeah.
And potentially the year. And he's been doing the good trouble with the paper he works for called Creative Loafing. So like him and I would just link up and like he'd run a story and then come on, I interview him about it. And then I would bring these stories about Tampa to Twitch, like because there's man, just like Google the St. Pete gunman from 2020, Google Jay Passmore and what happened to her, like the 6 fucking trans women that got murdered in the sheriff's department, like just slowly working the case, like dragging their feet until the community found out about it. Like there's so much foul shit that's happening, and the mayor's wife's mother is trying to run for a city council seat after she got booted out of fucking Tallahassee, mm-hmm. right? And the person that she's running against is like the one that is the true working class populist hero. You know what I'm saying? Like they're trying to get rid of her so they could put a developer friend in there. Yeah, I mean it's all fucked, dude. It's like so yeah.
Yeah,
like I said,
and like anyone who's in chat or if you're watching the VOD, because my VODs are very popular.
Nice.
But Levelhead, if you're in Levelhead's community, he also harps on how, your local community government is going to be far more important and more accessible to you, and why you should get involved in it. And if you look at the pattern of how the right wingers both went about their build up to getting Roe v. Wade repealed, and also what they're still doing to this day. Where did they go? They go to the school boards. That's where you need to fight them, right? Like, you know, go where the opposition is in order to counter the opposition.
Because I mean, they're going for the fertile ground, like what we just saw last night, and what happened with the Berkeley County School Board. 6 of these Moms for Liberty group like backed candidates won, or they're in November they won, and they basically went through and straight up just they fired the previous superintendent who was there without cause. They just straight fired him, and then this was at the first meeting. The very first meeting that this new school board had, it's 6-3, basically six moms for lead poisoning types versus 3, you know, regular people, right? And they have the chairmanship. So the one chairman is a Moms for Liberty chud. So like in the very first meeting of this board, they fired the superintendent Jackson, who was doing a great job and is certified, to then hire this guy, as some people within Mika's community is described as, a fat back and biscuits merchant, right? It's just this bullshit salesman who didn't even take the time to upload his certifications to the fucking South Carolina education website, which is required before you do the fucking job, right? So and even then, like even in the meeting last night, there was like this tone that was coming out of Dr. Dixon, the new superintendent, the fake guy, and he was just like, oh, you know, I'm sorry you all took the time to look for my certifications, and yet you go to the website and it still says pending, and it's like, bro, you're not So yeah, without getting lost in the weeds from what Len to jump off what Levelhead was saying, like absolutely, like the shit, you know, again, it's not the president that's coming into your state saying trans kids can't play sports. You know what I mean? Like it's the ghouls that live 3 doors down from you. You know what I mean? Like, so it's you know, oh, don't worry, Alina, we just started. So you didn't miss too much.
We haven't even talked about AI at all. I went over my TikToks for a little bit, and then we're just chopping it up regarding, you know, what normally PJ would stream about.
Yeah, I'm hopefully in the new year I'll be coming back. I haven't been talking about music, but I gotta get my shit serviced because I don't want crackles coming through when I'm jamming. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's like, again, it's the local politics shit, right? Like, you know, Mac McQuillan, you know, he ain't in DC. He's in Monk's Corner. You know what I'm saying? He's around the corner from me, and he's the one making massive fucking changes to property taxes, how the schools are running. He's trying to do a CRT ban. He's trying to do a new crazy ass censorship panel on books and whatnot, just like they doing in Florida. He's literally watching Florida. He's like, oh, how can I bring that shit here? And it's like, bitch, I moved from Florida to get away from Florida shit. That's why I came here. Don't bring Florida to South Carolina. That's why I left. Like, dead ass. I left Florida because of what they've done to the place.
Right.
Like, it's you know, I was having a good life in Florida, even post COVID, and even with the music taking a hit. I had a good life down there, but it was just like, nah, man, this ain't where I'm gonna want to raise my fucking kid. Like, this shit's wild. Right. You know, now they're trying to do it here, and it's like, get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
I gotta run for school board. Is that what's gotta happen? Is that what's happening, Globus? I gotta run for fucking school board. Great. Last thing I need them bringing. What did you mean by lead poisoning statistic? You know exactly what I meant, motherfucker. Shut up.
I think we need a little more of that because they do it on their side. So like, we need to just take the gloves off.
You know what? Dead ass, right? Like, if you're worried about some things in your past that fucked you, that might have, you know, be embarrassing, and even if you were in the right or even if you were in the wrong, and it's preventing you from running for like Land and Soil Commission or whatever, fuck it at this point. Look who was the fucking president, for God's sakes.
Right.
Look at all these clowns that we're electing to fucking Congress. You know what I mean? Dr. Oz almost became a fucking senator, for God's sakes. Like, if that clown shoot motherfucker was on the verge, you have no problem. Okay, don't worry about your past, right? This motherfucker literally sold lead pills as diet pills, and he almost became a senator. I think you telling someone to fuck off on the internet is very tame compared to some of the shit that's in there now, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So like Blake Masters almost became a senator for fuck's sake. Fuck, dude. Carrie Lake,
Right.
she almost became a governor.
Yeah, the bar has been lowered. Just go for it, right?
At
Just
this
get
point,
out there.
yeah. At this point, because look, regardless if you were a perfect saint in your entire life online for 20 years or 2 years or whatever it is, they're gonna find something.
Right.
They're gonna find
And
something
if they
to throw in
don't,
your face.
they're going to make it up, right? Like they don't care about
Yeah,
truth.
yeah. I mean, the thing is depending on what that shit is, lean in.
Yeah.
If they're like, oh, he had some very radical postings about CEOs in the Hamptons. Yeah, no shit, because there needs to be some radical solutions regarding CEOs in the fucking Hamptons. What's your problem? You know what I'm saying? Lean into that shit.
Right.
Oh, what do you mean by guillotines? I don't know. Ask Robespierre. Let's see what he meant about guillotines. All right. You know what I mean? Like, and then after that, just remind him that the Hamptons is not a defensible position. It's a fucking island with
Right.
one way in and out, right? It's not a defensible position.
So you alluded to it earlier when you were talking about getting back into streaming. You're a musician, right? Like you've played in bands like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a great deal of experience within, the musical industry as a performer and everything else. So I wanted to have you on. But I mean, you commented right in chat about it, about what AI is doing in reference to music.
Yes, and well, first off, like let's give a plug to the discussion you had yesterday with the underscore paradigm underscore shift. And there was like some things I want to like grab from that and
Absolutely.
and kind of go a little bit granular. You mentioned music, right? I think we should break things down. Let's take art, for example, and I think we should like subcategorize that by mediums, because I think a lot of this AI stuff, it's gonna be the conversation depends upon the art form and art medium of where these things are, because much like what we talk about with automation in the workplace, on how like they're all jobs are eventually going to be automated, but some of them are going to take like another 100 years, right? I think there's a similar dynamic that's happening within art, big top of the page underlined title of the document art. I think you see something very similar, and to give the example of that is the discussion that you were having. It seems that, and a lot of this AI art and our AI thing is it's geared more on the visual painting mediums, and versus like say us in the music world, right? So yeah, so I like, just to make things a little bit easier, like we have sculpting, we have dance, we have spoken word, we have music, and I want to separate them too, because I know singing and is a mouth thing, but they are separate in ways.
Right.
And then we'll say the written form and then the painted form.
Okay.
Which can include like photography and all that type of stuff. So I like I said, I think it's a matter of where you are in which medium and how you're being impacted. So if you're a musician, you already have a lot of some forms of AI, and well, I'm gonna say AI yet, because that's the automated shit, right? That's like the learning on its own thing. You had a lot of machine assistants already in music, like since the 80s even. There was a lot of machine assistants, right? Like we have a communication protocol called Music Instrument Digital Interface, MIDI, MIDI. That's basically, it's 16 channels. They only use 3 of them. I don't know why. They have a whole 13 other channels, but they never use them. But it's 3 channels on a special plug that basically sends information between digital music instruments. So back in the 80s, it was how you got your keyboard to talk to the drum machine, to talk to the sequencer, to talk to another piece of equipment. And when they all linked up that way, they're all in sync. So that way, if you have what's called a time-based effect, like an echo, 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 well, that the repeats are timed. So you have to make sure all that shit is all in time mathematically with each other. If not, it sounds like a cacophony of mess.
Right.
Right. So if like you got a song that's at 120 BPM, you set the beat, the metronome and all those machines, you'd have to run through and set it all to 121. Or you just take one of the main machines that's the master that's slaving all the other ones, and you just say 120 and boom, it sends it out. So we've had, and then when we get into the digital world, like we had Pro Tools, right? And then Pro Tools started bringing us more machine assistance in writing songs and recording, as well as plugins. You know what I mean? I got a plug-in on my computer that I can make this shit sound like Lemmy Kilmister's bass, and I don't even have his bass. I got a fucking regular old Fender Jazz bass.
Mm-hmm.
We are now just sort of getting to AI in that music world. There was a video, I'll put it, it's not loading for whatever reason, but if you were to search out this dude on, Dennis Martinson on fucking YouTube, he basically is doing an AI, a computer that is writing the songs for him, right? So this is kind of, to me, like the first foray into what I think is the AI art, which is the machine is doing the art, right? Like it's not machine assisted. It's not you using Photoshop or Light Studio or whatever the fuck they call that, right? Like this is the machine totally doing it. And that's what this video link is too. This is the machine totally doing it now. If you are a image-based artist, boy, does this suck right now. Like I do feel for those in the paint mediums, be it digital or old school oil and canvas, right?
Right.
Because it's I mean, see, as a musician, like a machine could write the song for me, but people want to see me perform it on stage, right? Like where are people asking for an artist to stand in front of a group of people and paint?
Right, but I wish I had had time to play the video that I wanted to play at the beginning of stream, but there is a let me make sure I could say this right. Hatsune Miku. Hatsune Miku is a fully computer generated
Vocaloid.
So you know about Hatsune Miku, and this is not a person, right? Like I do apologize, Chad. I lied to you. I said that the computer wrote the songs. The computer doesn't write the songs. It just sings the song and does the hologram. But the songs are written by the fans, I guess, is my understanding. So there's a component to that. But like this is an example, and like the return of Tupac by a hologram, right? Like, is there a sunset window for people to see a live show that's maybe sooner than you might think it is?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was an AI rapper that everyone fucking roasted off the internet, you know?
Right.
No, I do agree. Like it is and in fact, it was Ursa, my partner, who pointed that out to me. She was like, oh yeah, no, they already got like a hologram. And yeah, I guess, all right, I guess I'm in that camp.
Sorry to be that guy, but
yeah, no, I guess, I guess I'll be in that camp of like, bass player out of the job, but, and the thing is, I'll say this, I'm not bitter about it. I mean, if people are going to buy it, they're going to buy it. It is what it is, like it's a matter of, it's, I don't know. I don't want to add anything else to it other than like, people are just going to buy what they buy. Like I can sit there and have an opinion about it and be like, oh, it'd be better if there was real musicians up there. But then I'm just sounding like the crusty ass motherfuckers that were saying rap wasn't real music because they use drum machines.
Right.
Which is bullshit because it's everything. So much shit is written on drum machines. You know what I mean? Like fucking rock records are fucking drum tracked. You know what I mean? Or they're drum triggered now. Like, come on.
Right. And I'm sure that that this is not a new conversation. I'm sure that when electric guitars came out, there were acoustic purists who said that that's not real music, and you could probably go all the way back. Every time a new musical revolution of some kind comes along, a new instrument, then somebody, is like, no, that's not real music. Real music is this, and this new stuff it's never going to go anywhere, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, it's I don't know where it goes though. Cuz like we've had these moments before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say convergence points, right? Like, because for instance, they said like, oh, rock, guitar music is dead, but Polyphia is like one of the biggest fucking guitar aficionados and performers out there as a
Mm-hmm.
band. You know what I mean? Like, you go on TikTok, you go on YouTube, and you're seeing guys like Davey 508 and all these other guitar types, and they're doing millions of views
Mm-hmm.
on their videos and stuff like that. So yeah, like that, like I said, these will come up, like the doomsayers will come by, like this is the end. Oh my god, it's so over, and it's like, nah, dog, I'm still playing bass. I
Right.
mean, it may get, I mean, the gigs may get like shorter, or the opportunities may fall, but that was happening with bands versus DJs anyway. You know what I mean? Like you go down to Columbus Boulevard in Philadelphia, where all the clubs are at and shit. They used to have like party bands, and then DJs became popular in the '90s. So then they started hiring more DJs.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that there's not bands playing in Philadelphia anymore. Shit,
Right.
I did.
But it is like, as I was talking about, I'm pretty sure it was yesterday, is that the live band falls into that like artisanal category, right? Like it's something, I really want to go see a live band. So then you go see the live band. But if you just want to go out with some people and listen to some music, then you might go where there's a DJ. Or like, I mean, the jukebox is a
Yeah,
form of
nowadays.
automation, right?
Now it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially because of how they're server-based jukeboxes. Now, back in the day,
Right.
you used to have to go to different rooms depending on what they had in their jukebox, and like you would even leave a place because the jukebox was weak. You'd be like, "Dude, there ain't shit here. We're leaving."
Right.
And you would go to another fucking club or another bar or another hangout because and you would hang out in the shittiest of places because they had the better jukebox.
Exactly.
Because they had the better box. God, we're old, man. Holy shit. Yeah, you had to call people from payphones, motherfucker. Remember that
Yep,
shit?
yep. Just being in those kind of places where like they could get rid of everyone at the end of the night just by turning the lights on, and you saw
Oh
what the
my
place
god.
actually looked like, and it was like,
Oh
holy
my.
shit, I gotta get
No,
out of
and
here.
oh man. Dude, and then how they used to allow smoking in the fucking concert halls and the clubs and shit, dude.
Yep.
You'd walk in and it was just you would be like, "Oh, they must got like a fog show going." Nah, dog,
Yep.
that's all the cigarette and weed smoke just
Yep.
blowing in the air. A thousand, couple thousand people in a contained building just breathing hot exhaust onto each other. Why? I mean, it took this long before COVID came out? Holy shit.
Well, we were strong back then.
Yeah, it's all that lead. All that lead coated our lungs.
Yep. So, did you want to comment on the other forms of art, or?
Yeah, definitely. Like, so, because I would like maybe tier list it right now, right? So,
Mhm.
like, your your graphic artist and like your spoken word types, like, yeah, they're definitely feeling the AI thing right now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Musicians, music types, maybe not so much, but it's definitely there. I think if you're in like dance, you're pretty safe, right? Because until they get one of them Boston Dynamic robots to fucking pop lock, like they still need someone to do it, right?
I mean, it's close, right?
It's right. Um, and then if you're like if you're like a sculptor, or I think you're okay, but you are starting to feel some heat because of 3D printing.
And CNC machines.
And yes, and CNC machine. Yeah, well, that's been there for a while.
Right, but
Um,
if you combine the CNC machine with the 3D modeling and the AI, now who knows what you're going to end up with.
what I think is interesting here though with this is that when people say artificial intelligence,
Hmm.
well, let me throw the hypothetical kind of philosophical question at you.
Sure.
is the art that AI produces art?
Well, that's what I mean. That's what it comes down to: is what qualifies as art. Like, and I asked Paradigm this yesterday, um, and I think it's the fundamental question: is like, if you produce a piece of art in whichever of these categories, and a computer can mimic that piece of art to 100%, right? In its physical representation within, the medium space. At what point does a human factor actually exist that differentiates between the one created by the AI and the one created by the meat bag?
Yeah, I guess because my thing is, if we're talking like you said, if it's a matter of machine versus meat, the machine has to be fed data, right?
It does now, right? But
Yeah.
we can see that there is a point on a long enough timeline where the machine will seek out data. And to be fair, thinking about that, so do you, right?
That's what I
You.
now that's where I was going to get back where this
Mm-hmm.
is, because if this AI art script I see it almost similar to the artist's mind because like when I started like I learned on piano. I took 1 year of piano and the only song I could play on piano was Away in a Manger. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
it. Because it's just literally running the D scale backwards. Um so but when I moved to guitar, I would listen to my records and pick up them riffs. Like everybody in music does this, right? You
Right.
listen to your influences, you pick up some tricks, and then you rework it into your own. Dean Ween from the band Ween literally plays the same guitar solo all the fucking time, and he got it from Jeff Tweedy,
Mm-hmm.
okay, from Wilco, right? So, uh, but that's just it, right? It this thing just like that procedurally generated gent song script that it's just a 10-hour sample of it, but the guy's got a 24-hour one going. Um,
Jesus.
he had to literally play all the notes on his guitar at every single fret as individual bits of data into the fucking um into the program.
Mm-hmm.
So now it randomly so what it did is that when it first started off, it would just pick random chaos. Then it started learning scales. Then it started learning modes. Then it started learning like pentatonic riffs and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it still needed that data fed into it by Martin, the
Mm-hmm.
guy that formed that script. So that's where like the AI, like you said, until it gets to that point of like going off on its own, um, it's still being fed. It's almost toddler stage, right? Because it's almost like a toddler needs adults for its survival, and for its continuation. The
Mm-hmm.
AI needs humans for its continuation. If not, it just stops where at the last point you left it.
Right.
That's it. Unless it has the ability to self learn, to learn and run research against its own data and blah blah blah. So yeah, like I think the strong argument there is that like, yes, something is copied, but it was done so by a program that has to operate very similar to how human artists have to operate in seeking out these influences and seeking out this data in order to incorporate it into its own piece. So it's yeah, like
But
yeah, I go ahead.
with a child, like you want your kid to learn guitar, your kid wants to learn guitar. Um, Depending on how emphatic both of you are about that, like it could be for the kid that the only experience they have with learning anything about the guitar is when they go to the guitar lesson and like when they're practicing what they learned at the guitar lesson. If that child is not actively seeking out additional musical influences and different ways to play, then that child is functionally the same as the AI as it exists um, in that state that you were talking about, and therefore that child, yes, will be very limited in how that you can play, because the more you get, the more better, the more you can make it your own. But by the same token, like we're doing that with the AI now, and then all we have to do is let the AI have access to YouTube, and it could be over, right? Like that fast.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true.
So where does the human component come in? You know, like
I think it's right now there's the human component. I think when it gets to that phase that you described of it self-learning,
mm-hmm,
then I think it's totally over at that point.
mm-hmm,
Because at this stage right now, especially with that 24/7 gent channel, like that guy uses it to write song or write bits, and then he goes back and listens to it and then pulls out the parts that he likes and trashes the rest.
mm-hmm.
Um, if he was if that thing was like just set up and then let to go on its own and it's just constantly crushing and writing songs, then yeah, at that point, I don't know. It's very hard. It's a very fine line. That's a
Mm-hmm.
very fine line because at the end of the day, like these things wouldn't exist without us anyway. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like they wouldn't have come about through a process of evolution in the same way that we did. Like it had
Right,
to.
unless you want to stretch the meat in the definition of evolution to include, this in the same way that like we bear very little relation to the thing that crawled out of the ocean millions of years ago. The AI is evolving from a previous creature state that created it in some fashion, other than the fact that, there's um what you call it, like the us playing God, that kind of thing. But I think what makes people uncomfortable is we want to view ourselves as special, right? Like
Mhm.
beautiful, unique snowflakes in the universe, and AI making art makes us very uncomfortable because we don't know what defines us as well as we thought we did.
And we feel inadequate to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's showing our human limitations. It's showing that the meat sack is very limited and restrictive.
Right.
Um, and yeah, like you said, I don't think people can fucking cope with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, look, there were shit, man. I remember like the reason why 5-string bass guitars were invented was because bass players were pissed at keyboard players. You know what I mean? Like, that's why they invented them. Because
Mm-hmm.
they're like, well, fuck, we need something to get down to that low C. You know, because that the fucking keyboard players can get there, and they're putting us out of work.
Right.
But that was humans doing it to them, not a machine. So now it's like, I got his bass synth program. I don't need you.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And it's real easy to take shots at the machine, right? Because who's going to defend the machine, right?
Right. Right.
It's not human. There's none of the ethical questions that come up. There's no intersectionality that has to be dealt with the machine. The machine is cold and unfeeling and taking away your job, and you can get angry about that. But I think a lot of people are having to confront their. I mean, again, the problem, spoiler alert, is always capitalism. Um, but when you get up against, like the AI making art and you making art and you need to make art to live, your inner capitalist starts defending your patch of capitalist territory, right? Like, and you can tread close to modes of thinking that are adjacent to the modes of thinking of people that you're ideologically against. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, or did
Yeah.
that?
No, I got you. No, I
Uh,
got you. Yeah. 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 Sorry, there was something that popped up on my Twitter feed. I was like,
no,
fuck.
that's fine. Twitter is a distraction.
Yeah. I'm sorry
Um,
about that. I do apologize.
that's quite all right. I just feel like because one of the things like that I stand for on this channel is to build your scaffolding and then come to conclusions. That way you have a structure that supports your conclusions, and your modes of behavior will be strong and ethical and can stand up to the rigors of self-examination and interaction with other ideologies and things like that. There is an unfortunate amount of people who claim the ideological left, and they pinpoint the, okay, racism bad, right? But they haven't built the scaffolding to get to racism bad. They just start shoving sticks to hold racism bad in place. And when they have to deal with intersectionalities, then all of a sudden they have to twist themselves in knots in order to defend their position because they don't know how they got there.
Yes. Yeah. It's a matter of like hearing. It's like getting it's like getting the ending of the movie
Mm-hmm.
and not knowing how you got to it.
Right.
Right. Like, because I mean, look, there are like a conclusion of racism bad. That's a fair generalized conclusion. Like, it's a good
Mm-hmm.
one. Yeah, racism is pretty shitty. But then, like you said, you got to know, okay, how did we get there?
Right.
You know what I mean? I know it sounds like so, um, especially if we're talking about, because especially if you're talking about systemic shit, if you just start sitting there
Mm-hmm.
going off like trying to like shoving those sticks underneath the platform like you're talking about, you look like fucking Charlie Day talking about Pepe Sylvia. You know what I mean? Like you just he's over here and then he's over here just because you're randomly having to shove sticks in at random spots as the thing teeters and moves.
Right.
Whereas if you already had, like you said, if you already had that scaffold, if you already had the foundation in place, yeah, it's not hard to plumb the walls, the framing and get them up
Mm-hmm.
at that point. So yeah, it's hmm. Yeah, I where we go with this though, I mean, I think it's a matter of like, hey, embrace it. You know what I mean? Like, and just kind of embrace it. Um, I think to your artisanal point,
Mm-hmm.
I think that will come about more, right? Because I think one okay, let me separate even more like with the painted mediums. Like digital folks, yeah, you're kind of you're going to be kind of feeling oppressed. If you're still doing like acrylic paint and oil paint until that 3D printer shit can do it, which I mean, how can it not? It's just printing. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like it's just printing fucking paint. Um, I think you probably still, I think there'll still be places for it. Um,
Challenge. One of the videos, I think it was the CGP Grey video I played a couple of days ago, actually has a robot arm that's painting on canvas and signed it. So, and that was from 8 years ago.
8 years ago? Oh
Yeah.
boy.
That's what I'm saying. It's like when I saw that video personally, my own personal experience, when I saw that video, I was like, first of all, as an artist, I'm like, okay, I'm good for a minute, right? They're gonna come for me last, and it turns out, they're gonna come for me first, right? Like, it's like yes, all the jobs where you enter in numbers and move stuff around, those come first, but they can do art, right? Like to a certain degree, and now we're getting into the realm of what is art, what is definitions, and like what is this do to us as human beings, and what does this do to our like where does AI taking over the jobs and automation taking over the jobs eventually lead to something else?
Hmm. Hmm.
We all know that, like, as leftists, the automation is supposed to give us more free time. And that is the lie that we were fed as children
Yeah.
in school, right? Um, and that has not happened. But there is going to come a point where, like, and I was trying to explain this yesterday to Alina. The the billionaires' power comes from their accumulation of capital by producing things that we consume. There's a tipping point where us not consuming enough erodes their power.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have enough people buying widgets, and if you keep raising the price of the widgets and pricing those people out, yeah, then
Right.
what happens? You know what I mean?
And
like,
so this is not a problem for just artists and working class folk. This is fundamentally affecting everyone, up and down the hierarchy.
right. So, and especially too, because like, I think one thing, and you guys hit on it yesterday, like we're also speaking about this within the framing of commodification, right? Like that's the overall framing of this is if commodification, because like art is art. Like my 7-year-old could go and write some shit up on paper. That's art. Now, of a matter of like, okay, she can make a living from that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of where we're kind of hinting. Oh, like there's gonna be like you heard it like you heard me say it in my lead up in all my presentation here. Like oh, getting a job as a bass player, or you might still have work as a dancer, or yada yada yada. So yeah, if anything, I think the societies, specifically in Europe, that have taken the time to subsidize the art education of its populace are probably going to be okay with this transition, right? What I think happens here in a place like the States, if we just continue to go with this neo-lib shit, that you find less people doing art and that it becomes more of a hobby of the rich, because they're going to be the ones that could subsidize their kids' lives to be able to go and pursue that. Like gone are the days of Steve Vai flipping burgers during the day, then going home and practicing guitar at night, and then getting the gig on Friday. Like that's slow. That's probably going to slowly. I was already kind of slowly slipping away anyway with just the rising cost of living, and then the changing of audience taste regarding DJs and bands. So yeah, I think yeah, like a lot of this when we talk about art, especially human-based art, like I think we do have to mention the big C word. You know what I mean? I think you do have to mention the capitalism word here. Because again, like motherfuckers did make livings doing this stuff. Everyone talks about the trope of the starving artist. Yeah, that happens. That does. The starving artist shit, yeah. But there's also like tons of other people that make look. One of my mentors, rest his soul, he actually passed away last month. Tom Najarian, from Philly, was a working musician. He was a working musician. Him and his partner did duo acoustic gigs, private parties, bars, and then he had 2 other bands that he worked with. And that man was playing and then hosting an open mic. So that man was working 4-5 nights a week, like a night job. You know what I mean? Like there's millions of people, there's tons of people like that across the US. Tons of them. But with and even in the songwriting business, right? Like they Paradigm could probably speak on this more, but they got this thing in popular music. They got this concept. It's called writer camps. And basically what it is that a bunch of producers all go to a studio on the weekend and they just do nothing but write songs together. Like hundreds of songs. They just crank them out, song after song after song. Then the big famous singer like a Rihanna or a Taylor Swift or whoever comes to the studio and they pick out 5 songs. They're like, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one. And then they crank them out. And then that becomes the single release schedule for that artist, that music artist for the year, right? So like the shit that Taylor's working on, like that last record, song written by a songwriter camp that had Max Martin and a couple other dudes in it. They cranked out a bunch of tunes, had her come in, listen to them, and then record them, right? So like I said, tons of motherfuckers out there still doing that. Now, of course, they in a threat, because if the machines could just be like, dude, I got this thing that sounds exactly like James Jamerson playing bass. Well, there you go. There you go. You got a facsimile of James Jamerson on your record now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it lends itself, like I was alluding to the idea of a fully AI rendered movie from top to bottom, actors, voices, score, everything. You could, using AI, like, okay, I don't know any I barely know anybody's names. Like, I'm not good with names, but like, all right, I want the
Bradley
lead
Cooper.
singer of the Who. I want or like the mashups. Okay, let me speak on the mashups. I want a mashup of Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and I want them all on stage at the same time. Theoretically, on a long enough timeline, AI, with CGI and face masking and vocal sampling and musical sampling, could actually create that concert for me.
Mm-hmm.
And how can a band that's struggling to get started out compete with something like that? Other than I just like to see sweaty dudes on stage yelling.
Well, I mean,
I didn't mean to downplay that because I'm personally not a concert guy, but I have been to some concerts that I really enjoyed, and like I don't disrespect your medium at all. I'm just part of the focus of this this series of conversations that I'm having is to ask people in those industries hard questions about what is going on and seeing what y'all come up with. And like Paradigm was great yesterday, you're great today. I've got other people lined up, and
nice.
I want to keep this rolling as long as possible to get as much data from as many sides of the coin as I can.
Yeah, well, because it's gonna be. Well, because just even as a consumers, right? Like even as a consumer base, we're all not going to operate as a monolith when it comes to these new AI produced products that are going to be coming out. You know what I mean? Like some of us may sit there and be like, "Nah, man, I can't fuck with that." That you know what I mean? Or other people would be like, just may not know the difference. I mean, look at the Miku, the Vocaloid. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows that the fans know that's not a real person, but they enjoy it. You
Right.
know, like I know that they try to
I
do that shit
watched
with
a
AI rappers.
concert. They really enjoy it. Like, I mean, first of all, I've never seen a concert where they're like in orderly rows and stuff, and they're all doing the same motions, and it's a little weird to my Western eyes. But
Yo, Japanese concerts are amazing. Yeah, and they're like so that they like wait until the very end of a song and then they start clapping. You know what I mean? Like they're very polite and very courteous and respectful to the performers. And it's almost kind of like I mean, yeah, people still cheer while the song and they sing along and whatnot, but it's almost like they're like, especially if there's like a quiet part, everyone gets shh, 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 shh.
right.
You know what I mean? Like they're very, whereas here in the States, they're like, woo, yeah.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
they're.
like,
Do you know the Tragically Hip?
oh, fuck yeah, man. Rest in
Okay.
peace, Gordy, man.
Yeah, so there's a line from the one song, 100th Meridian, where he goes, I remember Buffalo, and living near Buffalo, like, you go to a Tragically Hip concert, they're like, yeah, no, they're talking about fucking Buffalo, dude, not the city,
Right?
the goddamn animal. But yeah, no, we hear a word that sounds like our city, and we go nuts.
That was actually that like a funny story on that. Um, the Black Diamond Sky tour with Mastodon, Alice in Chains, and Deftones from like 15 years ago or whatever now at this point, right? Um, Mike Inez, the bass player for Alice in Chains, is like a big New York sports fan, and he made the mistake of mentioning that shit in Philadelphia. He was just like, "Hey Philly, look, I know y'all Eagles fans, but I still got love for you even as a Giants fan. Shut the fuck up, Mike." Like, holy shit, dude. God, we're just savages.
Yeah, no,
Just
Philly is harsh. Philly is harsh. I like how y'all grease the poles up there to keep people from climbing them when your
we
team
still
wins.
climb them, baby. We still climb them. They didn't figure out that the Carhartt fucking fabric gives you fucking grip regardless of grease. That's why we all wear that shit out on the job sites, motherfucker. Yeah. Just throw your Carhartt on, fucking you get up that pole, no problem. I don't care how much fucking how many tubs they rub up and down on that pole at Broad and Pattison. You understand? That fucking listen, that traffic light at A and K is coming down. All right. That's what's happening. If Bryce Harper hits a home run and Northeast Philly gets property damage, them's the rules. I'm sorry. Like, oh, so close. Almost had a World Series. Fuck. Almost had a World Series this year.
So like I feel like we're on the same page with the idea that there is going to be. I mean, first of all, we both understand that AI is coming no matter what, right? Like
Yes.
you as an individual can opt out, but AI is going to come. And
Yeah, it's like you saying I refuse to get a cell phone in 2022.
right. I got a friend.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I
Honestly,
got a friend who fights tooth and nail to not have a cell phone. It's the weirdest goddamn thing.
I can respect it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, look, I'm a bit of a boomer in the sense of like, I even think these smartphones are getting way too out of fucking hand. You know what I mean? Like, I think shit was. I just had to go spend $300 fucking dollars on an upgrade to replace a phone that I didn't have for less than 2 years
Right.
because the charging port broke, and it couldn't fucking charge anymore. Right? I had a flip phone, a keyboard fucking LG flip phone for 10 years. And the only reason I had to get rid of that motherfucker was because it was on the old 2G or 3G net.
Right.
And that was it. They said, yeah, you can't use this phone no more. It's just not going to work. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't give a fuck about Facebook online, mobile Facebook shit or anything like that. I didn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? I had text. I have phone calls. If I want to talk to someone, I know I'm a boomer. If I want to talk to someone, I just fucking call them. You know what I mean? Like that was it. But then, yeah, so far I had 2 flip phones in my entire adult life. I've now had 3 smartphones in less than in like a fraction of the fucking time I've owned flip phones. You know what I'm saying? Like but yeah, I mean, I'm digressing.
Yeah. But I was an early adopter. I had, a cell phone back in the 90s. I
Nice.
had the StarTech flip phone when that came out. I actually worked for
Yes.
Singular Wireless, so I got deals on cell phones. And I love having a tiny computer in my pocket that I can, just access the wealth of human knowledge. I think it's amazing. But like I said, I got a friend who, like, you literally have to put it in his hand and pay for it in order for him to have it.
You have to what?
Like he worked with me as a contractor, like, doing building refurbishing and shit like that.
Okay.
And the only reason that he got a cell phone was because the boss needed him to have a cell phone, a smartphone, and paid for it, paid for his plan, and gave it to him. That was the only reason he had one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten one. We're like opposite ends of the spectrum in that regard.
Got you. Man.
People are wild, dude.
Yeah. Shit, look at the stuff people do with the phones. Oh man. So yeah, how long do you think before, like, how many years before the AI, like, what's your over under on it before it's just like, of all these art mediums, it's just like the dominant force producing it?
Like, if you would ask me 2 months ago, I would have said, like, maybe another 10 years. You asked me today, and next year. Like,
Really?
like watching the progression from, like, Snapchat filters on pictures and all the photo manipulation that you could do that just came out new last year, like something like Prisma. I think Prisma came out last year. And then you look at the stuff that people are doing with Lensa this year, it's like a quantum leap forward. And I think that you're going to continue to see that because, like, one of the things that happens is that we don't understand the time scales involved because we exist with this experience, right? So we have the 24-hour day and the work cycle and everything else. The computer is doing these, can run many calculations. It's like when you think about the idea of um the like the computer AI within the virtual reality, and it can experience like lifetimes in seconds kind of thing, that it is capable of working a lot more. It's capable of working on that 24 hours a day. Um,
Mhm.
and you can get more than one of them doing the same thing and comparing things to each other. And it happens, it's like with the stock market happens so fast because the computer can make the decisions at that speed, which is far beyond the human capability of looking at a number, figuring out what it means, pushing a button. Those difference in time scales, I don't think we as humans really appreciate.
Yeah, that's so you're saying within a year.
I'm saying within a year you're going to see something that, like, the complaint is about, like, it still doesn't hit the same like quality level as a human digital artist without human modification of the art that it produces. I think I would say by December of next year you're going to see something that is at least equitable
Mm.
consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if it's been cranking out like crazy right now.
Mm-hmm. And the more people who use it, the more information it gets and the more experiences it has. And, there's 8 billion of us. And if half of us are using something like that, that's 4 billion interactions multiplied by that time, you know, difference. And who knows what it's doing when we're not playing with it, right?
Right. Yeah, like again, and it's also a matter of like, do you actually turn it off or is it going on doing its thing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know what I mean? Like if it truly does become like cuz you end this phone call with me, right? I'm going to go off and live my life and do my thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas in the case of like you're done interacting with me, the AI interface that's helping you write music, and you turn the machine off for the night, like I'm done. You know what I mean? Like I'm done. But I think if we get to that point where it's like, okay, I'm walking away from the compute, like almost like a perpetual motion machine. Like once you
Mm-hmm.
start it, give it the fuel to start, it just goes. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that's within the year that these things
um
become perpetual, a quote unquote perpetual motion machine?
Yeah, there's a lot of data that I don't have to make that determination. Um, Again, like, the Mid Journey kind of caught me slipping, right? Lenza not so much. The quality that Lenza puts out kind of caught me slipping, but Mid Journey completely caught me slipping. Like, I have seen some of the things that people have created with it, um, and it's like it just blows me away. It's like I would absolutely pay for that, and like I would pay for the service that allowed me to create these things. It's the same thing with like Google. In Google, I just noticed something about Google that I hadn't noticed before. Was when I was looking into Hatsune Miku. The next search I did, um, was autofilling with Hatsune Miku because it knew that that's the thing that I was just looking for, right? So
Yeah,
if
this is
I'm
yeah, the suggestion shit.
yeah, so if I'm creating with Midjourney and it presents me with like 6 pictures. I don't know how Midjourney works because I haven't fucked with it yet, but I will be fucking with it in order to speak more intelligently on it. But if it presents me with like, if it's like Dolly and it presents you with like 9 images and you reject those images and add another prompt to it, then it knows not only what you're, or it has a suggestion of what you're asking for, but it's also knows what you didn't like. So it's going to compare those things with other things in order to continue to like it's going to want to be helpful because of the nature of what it's trying to do, in the same way that Google wants to be helpful in order for you to get to the thing that you're searching for. So I don't have a good time scale for when like machine learning is just going to, I don't want to say get out of hand, but like get out of the box and just start going, and what that will produce.
I think I'm going to say 5 years. I'm going to say by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say by 2030, it gets to that. It's once you give it its first initial spark, it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think by 2030, you do see your first entirely machine learned AI movie. I think you do see one. Now, if it's good, now if it's of good quality to go out into a theater and actually get a run, debatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Definitely
yeah,
it'll be on YouTube, right?
yeah, 100%. If not YouTube, it's going to be streamed out of, like
Or
by
Netflix.
2030, like, yeah, like honestly, by 2030, I wouldn't put it past an Amazon Video or Netflix to actually, because like there's going to be iterations well before, like I say 2030 of the one that we all say, like, yeah, that's the one. That's
Right.
the first AI film. I mean, the one that we all credit. Everyone says that, Elvis invented rock and roll. No, he was just the first one to get on TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was Mama Harper and fucking Chuck Berry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so yeah, 20, I think 2030 is the point that we have the first, like okay, you can already say like the Vocaloid is just, I mean, is there a program writing Hatsune's songs, or is someone else writing them for?
No, Hatsune's songs are written by her fans. It was what I read on the Wikipedia page. So,
Okay.
which, like, as a to
I think, you know what?
tangent
There's
away
your
from
first. There's
AI. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's your first.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think she's your. I think she. And yeah, look at. I mean, the things human like. I'm calling it she.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hatsune is your first thing, because it's not like it's not like, okay, the Tupac hologram where like, okay, it's Tupac had to write that shit in the studio with Dre, and now they're just doing a hologram that mimics his movements and shit,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that was still Pac like having to write the original source material.
Mm-hmm.
If it's coming down now where like just bits of data, in the same way a human songwriter would do it. Oh, I got a line here. I got a melody there. I got a bar here. If it's bits of it, those are all just bits of data. If
Right.
it's coming from the audience in the same fashion, and then the AI is putting it together and compiling it in that joint into a song, I think there's your first. So smash the 2030 fucking cutoff, as far as I'm in terms of that. So now we just
Mm-hmm.
got to wait on sculpting and dance. Well, that's covered. Dance and singing, right?
I
And
think.
Chat GPT is probably gonna, Open GPT or whatever the fuck that thing is. That's probably gonna do the poetry. Motherfuckers will start feeding that shit poetry or whatever soon, if it hasn't already.
Yeah, and that relates to the the music generation. Is like eventually something like GPT will be able to create songs that are, and like if you go and you figure out like pop music has, like, let's say, not to get too deep into the emo punk core rock, death whatevers, but like just like an emo song, there's emotional beats, there's certain elemental cues to the lyrics. Once a computer is capable of taking in all that data and being able to provide a reasonable facsimile and then running it through the Vocaloid, then why do I need a singer songwriter anymore? You know,
Yeah.
like for that extreme.
Right. And for instance, when it comes to writing the music, music is math, right? Because I'm surprised I didn't mention this shit earlier. Music is math. Like you mentioned that thing about like, okay, so we can feed all these notes and beats into a AI machine, right? And then we tell it, hey, write me an emo song. Well, it could spit out something completely fucking random.
Mm-hmm.
But within music, we have already had this programming for centuries, at least within Western music, right? The Western music theory system. And they're called chord progressions. They're called major scales, minor
Mm-hmm.
scales, modes. They're nothing but patterns. When you go up to a musician and say, "Yeah, man, this chord progression is in the key of D and it's a 1 5 6 4 progression," that's a combination of the Western system and the Nashville system. And those numbers just represent notes, and they just slide depending on what the starting note is. So, like if my starting note is C, there's a pattern I follow, and it just falls over all the 12 other notes like a template, and it
Mm-hmm.
just excludes the other ones and gives me the ones that I need. So like I said, out of 12 notes, because if you count C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, all the way through, it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then they all have sharps or flats in between them. Well, most of them except for two. Um, Again, it's you just have a pattern of 8 notes, and that gives you that, okay, this 8 note pattern gives you that emo feel. This 8 note pattern gives you the death metal feel. This 8 note pattern gives you the blues feel. This 8 note pattern gives you the jazz. This one gives you pop. This one is what they use in R&B, so forth and so on, right? So once the machine has that, that's all it needs. That's all it needs at that point, and it just can crank it out. So like you can then go up and tell it like, yeah, I want an emo song, and it knows to do a 1 5 6 4 chord progression somewhere inside of it. It also knows to do a 2 5 1. What else was there in emo? Yeah, 1 6 4 5 progressions. You know what I mean? Like emo borrows from a couple of those,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like you said, so once it has that info, and you tell it, yeah, I need an emo song. Boom, it already knows what to do. Or if it just feels like writing an emo song that day, it has the pattern. Because in music, there's all these little things. Bob Dylan wrote a very great essay about this when he talked about archetypes in music genres. He said there's two music genres out there that the audience does not want any change: bluegrass and black metal. If there's no, like, even blues music, like when you go up, like when people go to like a blues show, they expect to hear 1 4 5
Mm-hmm.
12 bar. They expect to hear certain licks. When you go to a bluegrass show, same thing. You expect to hear certain licks and riffs. You expect the performers to be dressed a certain way, right? It's as Bob Dylan said, it's the two genres of music that do not have to evolve because the audience doesn't want them to.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, where we're getting at with AI is that for AI, okay, well, the audience expects this type of movement in the black metal song. It expects this type of beat in the bluegrass song. So it almost makes it easy for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to reinvent a wheel. It just goes and does it, right? Like, because we're expecting it.
I
You
think
hear it.
you did hit on something there, because you said, like, if the AI feels like creating an emo song, and that and I don't have enough data to say one way or the other, but at this point in time, the AI doesn't feel like doing anything, right? The AI is something that you ask to do something and then it does the thing. Theoretically, the next stage would be that it would extrapolate our desires and needs from previous interactions and the data that it's gathered. But you would really have to, it would have to initiate of its own volition to create, and that is the only real difference that I can find between human generated art and AI generated art, is that the AI doesn't have the volition to just choose to create of its own.
Yeah, it's drive. Yeah. What's gonna motivate it? I mean, I mean, sex, drugs, and rock and roll was a good motivation for us. Base
Right.
the machine.
But it's all the chemicals, right? The chemicals in us that makes us love the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What are the digital versions of sex, drugs, and rock and roll that a computer might want in order to create? And this is like, here's the thing that I've said, like, I joke about it with Dave Matthews Band because people have strong feelings about Dave Matthews Band, but like the first Dave Matthews Band album was hungry, right? Like everyone's first album they're usually like hungry, so it comes across, it's usually like one of their best albums, and because they are hungry, right? They're not eating, they're running themselves ragged, trying to get shows, trying to get famous, trying to get an album, trying to get a deal, trying. Then they get signed, and then like the next couple of albums they start to fall off because now they're fat, dumb, and happy. And is there something? I mean, a computer can mimic that with just enough data, I guess.
Yeah,
Every time I think I got something, it's just like, no, there's just more questions behind this.
well, yeah, no, it's because I don't think. I mean, it's quantum computing. I don't think that our brains are ever going to get behind. I think, like, I mean, maybe, like, because it's almost like we're hitting at ethical discussions too. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like ethical topics, because like, oh, is it really art versus not? Um, and it
Yeah,
just sucks.
and
It just sucks
Alina
because
brought it
like,
up in chat earlier, and it's something I'm going to explore next week. Is the rights of robots and how we treat them and everything else. But
yeah, like we are gonna have to like, yeah, you know what I mean? Are they is this, especially if they get to a point where they can make decisions for themselves and they can refuse,
mm-hmm,
right? If they come to a point where you tell them like, yo, I want you to write a black metal song for me, and they're like, we're sorry, PJ, but we don't think that will work for your career. I don't give a fuck. Write it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, how much
mm-hmm,
control do I have over this motherfucker? You know what I'm saying? Like, um, yeah, like especially if the machine sits there and punches the data together and is like, but then does that influence us? Do we then just become way more data driven ourselves because the machines, like, yo, like, give you an example, your cell phone. Tell me your friend, well, not on the air,
mm-hmm.
obviously, but can you recall your friend's phone number off the top of the dome? I can't. I can't recall my mother's phone number off the top of the dome.
I can. I got my wife's number, and that's it.
Yeah. You know what? I should have my partner's number memorized. I should. I should actually work on that. Um, but the dead ass, like, growing up, you either had a little book or you memorized that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You fucking, I mean, I could still know my friends. I could still say my friends' fucking phone numbers to this day from the
And
house they grew up in.
like after the rotary phone, there were the digital pad, and you knew the pattern, right? Like even if you didn't remember the number, you
Right.
learned the pattern.
Yeah. You were just like, wait, what's up here? Oh no, no, yeah, that's right. That was, yeah, it was a two. Yeah, yeah, it was over here. That's right. Yeah. It's yeah, so it's so yeah, I wonder then, like, because like I said, are we just gonna slowly just adapt and just let the machines crunch the numbers for us that hard to be like, your probability of asking this person out is 39%. You should really ask out Jennifer. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, yeah, you haven't been wrong. Like,
Right.
yeah, you haven't dialed the wrong number out of my contact list when I hit mom, right? Like, it still connects to her, right?
And yeah, like you know, the what people say about like self-driving cars and other forms of AI is it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to do better than um the humans. And like, yeah, I mean, the number of people through the course of your life who have complained about how hard it is to find someone that they can date, how hard dating is, yada yada. If there was a computer program that had a hit rate better than yours, you're going to use that program, right? Like, because now you're with someone or multiple someones or whatever your dynamic is, you know,
You're
the
getting a response. Yeah, you're getting regardless of how like that could be a hit rate on dating someone, but not necessarily starting a relationship. But yeah,
Mhm.
you're gonna tune your mind to it because you're seeing results in real time,
Right.
right?
And you like one of the things is like I was serious but she wasn't. You can incorporate that into the dating app, which it's like only search for people who are looking for casual relationships, right?
Yeah,
And boom.
yeah. And now if you have an AI that's out there automatically linking people together rather than sitting there and doom scrolling plenty of fish,
Hmm.
the old POF, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think what's kind of fascinating because you mentioned that the self-driving cars. I'm surprised the art shit didn't happen first because that seemed to be the more easier application versus the cars. Google had to shut down the Skyway Bridge in Tampa for them to wreck one of their fucking self-drivers.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I'm just amazed that like you would think by this point the AI art would be exploded if we were just starting field testing automated fucking vehicle shit.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of interesting how it went backwards a
Yeah.
little bit. And when it went back, it went cars first, then this shit. Because honestly, this shit in a lab, music, AI learning, artistic, yada yada, that's easy to do with the least impact to other people. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, aside from the artist. But in terms of like, they didn't have to shut down the Skyway Bridge so Martin can work on his 24/7 gent fucking procedurally generated AI. You know what I mean? Like, but they did have to shut it down to fucking test a Google car that ended up smashing into the center fucking barricade.
And I think the primary driver there is um
Plus cost too. Fuck, you would think the art fucking AI is cheaper to fucking pursue than the car one.
it is, but at the same time, what is capital's interest
Oh
in putting the
yeah,
funding behind it? Transportation costs. It's the
the
CGP
DOT
gray
is
video. Yeah,
subsidizing this. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that and like the insurance companies have an interest in it because self-driving cars that are safer than humans saves them money on payouts. Like there's so much capital interest in automated transport that's why people were pushing it so hard.
Yeah,
Um,
this is getting the nuclear bomb and then eventually nuclear power plants instead of nuclear power plants leading to the nuclear bomb.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
It's
think that one of the hits that came to the automated driving industry is Elon's behavior. Like I think that is hurt because there's a rising number of people who don't like his behavior as signified by his Tesla stock cratering.
line go down. Love it.
And
Get humbled, motherfucker.
get
Get
humbled.
fucking humbled.
And the um he's associated heavily with the electric car and the automated car, and like the rest of that community who are trying to produce these things are like and he's not. So I think that they are generally like keeping things under wraps as well, and there's just not as much public enthusiasm because we associate these things in our monkey brain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh God, yeah. I gotta remember we have a meat sack that fucking limits us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. Capital would want this. But then the other thing too is that like who's like getting back to your point about the widgets and keeping this thing moving and who's going to afford this shit?
Right.
Who
And
will
that's
afford this?
this is
And
how
and
it
and
all
you
comes
ain't
around.
you ain't going to be able to sit there and retro modify my fucking 2006 Chevy Trailblazer with an AI self-drive unit.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. No. No, Chevy don't even know what to do with the fucked up washer wiper blade fucking washer solvent shooter switch that's failing on my truck now. You know what I'm saying? Like they literally have a document out that says GM is now looking into this. Oh, really? Shit. 16 years later. Cool. Thanks, guys. But yeah, so yeah, like who's going to be able to afford this? Who's
Right.
going to be able to, you know?
And if people aren't buying the widgets, then this erodes the power of capital. So
But then
it's
this
you know
also erodes the tech. This also erodes the research into the tech because then you get to a point where like, oh well, ain't no one got money for it, so mothball it, shut it down, and then like I
right.
think that it could lead to like delays. So 2030 could be 2040. You
In the
know.
physical stuff, yes. However, the nature of people who interact with code is different because it doesn't require you to build anything, right? Like I don't have to make I might have to make a better, stronger, faster computer to handle the code that I'm trying to get my machine learning to run on. But that will continue to go forward because it's in capital's interest to have quantum computing and better, faster, stronger computers. So that will continue to happen. The code, I mean, I'm using OBS. OBS is open source. It's made by a bunch of fucking dudes who like to make shit. And it's all code. So it doesn't require you to manufacture anything. So there's no price restriction. You can make code with just time and effort. So I think that things like AI and machine learning aren't going to be as affected by funding because there will be people who just want to see what it can do. Where things like trying to upgrade your vehicle to an electric vehicle, there are numerous hurdles to doing that because of the cost of material objects.
Mm. Fucking capitalism.
That's why everything is like, even like within the first 15 minutes of the first episode of this series, I was like, spoiler alert, the problem is capitalism. But I, again, I feel like AI is one of our strongest chances for humanity as a whole to figure out something different because it affects all of our material interests across the board, and it requires an entire new way of being and a new way of existing and a new way of interacting with each other in order to um, make sure that we can continue to exist. And that is always one possibility, is that, the rise of AI, not through anything that the AI does to like turn us into gray goo or anything else like that, but just by its active existence and our failure to adapt to the new condition causes us to just cease to exist.
Yeah, I got I got a bad feeling though that, because look, it comes down to socialism or barbarism, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got a bad feeling we're going to be going towards the second.
Mm-hmm. It's
You know.
possible. Like there are options, and we make our choices, and we deal with the outcomes.
Yeah.
It's who can move fastest, bestest, that will win. And one of the issues I've always had with the zombie apocalypse movies is that everyone in the movie is an asshole, and assholes don't survive in groups.
Yeah, yeah. It,
So
it's
there might be a temporary kind of barbarism, or at least an effort to do barbarism, but then strength in numbers, and we will reject the barbarism in our own self-interest.
Hopefully, I mean it's. I mean, the other issue is what climate change does and makes livable land and unlivable. You're gonna be having 20 million people coming up out of Florida, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like how are people in Appalachia going to treat them?
Yeah, and
You know,
I thought it was funny where, you know, because there have been previous complaints about how AI has acted in, you know, racist ways and everything else. But Ben Shapiro goes on GPT and he's like, "Why is traditional marriage the best form of social whatever?" And it's like, well, actually, there's no evidence for that, and maybe you need to reconsider your position. Um, I kind of feel like a weird kind of hope that AI would probably think that socialism would be in our best interest, and you know that the rise
hey,
of the machines could handle that capitalism for us.
hey, Paradox Interactive is slowly Marx pilling all of the gamers with Victoria 3 right now. Basically showing them like, yeah, communism works very well in 1830s
Yeah.
and 1840s. It worked very well and can work very well. Dude, all over Reddit, all the gamers are over there like, why is communism so OP?
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder why. Sharing the fucking distribution of the profits and letting everybody get the resources they need to be productive. Gee, I wonder why it's good.
All roads lead to communism. So we're coming up on the end of it.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate this has been friggin' great.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Likewise.
Is there anything you wanted to add? Anything you feel you missed before I let you go?
Not. I mean, I guess the bow on it is you know the AI art thing is coming. We're seeing it already in some mediums now. Um, it's you know we may be seeing it more regarding the digital artists because they're people that are on a computer and thus you know not saying they're terminally online all the time, but you know they have access to the internet with their jobs, so they're quick to report this, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but like my personal like where the AI is where you don't have to feed it anything anymore, like you don't have to set the parameters and push go. I say all that shit is by 2030 regarding on the art stuff. Um, but I still think there may be because like with everything where everything culture moves, there's always a counterculture,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's always like a pushback. Some may describe the 90s quote unquote mainstream grunge scene that we all saw as a cultural pushback and a divide in Gen X amongst younger Gen X and older Gen X that was more into like the glam and gutter punk, gutter rock and gutter metal of like the New York, you know, like Motley Crue and people call it cock rock, but whatever,
Mm.
right? Um, so I think you might even just speaking from the music aspect because that's my bread and butter. Um, I wonder then if it's like gonna you might see, you probably might see something similar in regard like okay yeah like there is the Miku, right? There's gonna be that, but then there's gonna be the people that want to see a Beyonce. They actually want to see another human. They actually do want to see like the artisanal shit that you were mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so like for as scary as it may seem with the AI, still it doesn't mean that humans are replaced, right? There's still there's still gonna be there's still gonna be other humans that are gonna want other humans like to demonstrate some oh you keep bringing but like there are still like there are gonna be want to there's gonna be want to have there'll be humans out there that still want to go to a bar and hear somebody play Stevie Ray Vaughan songs
Mm-hmm.
and want to feel you know the compression of the sound waves from a tube amp, You know what I mean? Because like I'll even mention, like I know I'm gonna go off on a tangent. I'll even mention something like this, like in terms of just digital, not so much AI, but just digital power, like Class D power has done amazing things for live concerts.
Mhm.
Amazing things for live concerts now. Back in the day, you used to have to go and get massive subwoofers, massive 22-inch fucking subwoofers, and they were all powered, even with solid state technology, even with MOSFET, like by these big, heavy, just like furnaces of power amps, man. They were just throwing heat like crazy. And it was analog for the most part. And you would feel the sound waves just bashing the shit out of you. You would leave these concerts with like almost concussion
Mhm.
because of just how much sound pressure was just blaring and blasting out of these places. Now you go to these concerts with these big concert halls, and they have this new Class D powered speakers and all the newer shit, and it's so crisp, it's clear, it's got clarity, it has the volume, but it doesn't punish you,
Mhm.
right? Like it doesn't punish you. I'm saying, so but there's going to be people that want to feel punished,
Right.
right? There's going to
Every time there's a pit, that proves your point right there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's gonna be, because like I said, like I've done performances backed by electronic drums, and I've done them with real drummers. Like I had the two big bands. I had one cover band, one original band. Original band had a real drummer, a left-handed drummer, and then the cover band had a Roland V kit drummer, an electronic drum kit player. And like I'll say the electronic kit was great because it was like set up in a quarter of the time. Plug them two cables into the PA system, and the drummer was done. Right, just adjust the volumes, ready to go. But it didn't feel the same.
Mhm.
Right, it didn't feel the same. You got the sound, you got the bass frequency in the monitor, and get it from his stage monitors, and then you'd get a little bit off of it from the mains on the PA, but it just didn't feel the same. I didn't get that compression in my chest. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like when I did
exactly.
when playing with
Dum,
Jesse.
dum, 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 dum. And
Yeah.
when the drummer's getting ready, he's like dum, 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 and it
Yeah.
hits you in that chest.
Yeah, and there's just something to it, man. Like it's just when you see when like cuz I perform with a lot of high energy. You know what I mean? Like people have described me as flea on stage, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just run around, jump shit. Um so it's like it's interesting in that regard because it's like people vibe from that. Like I've had photographers come up to me after shows and be like, dude, you are so fun to photograph because you move and you hold different poses and like you have because I bring action and movement and they convey that in a lot of great photos. Um, and that's the thing is that like people were gonna want. I think people are still gonna want that, and I think that's something that the AI just is not going to give you, right? Like you're not going to see the sweat forming on my shirt,
Mhm.
or when I start bopping my head and you see it flick off of me like a boxer taking a left hook, you know? Like seeing the strain on the drummer's face as he's going through a certain part, and hearing the click of the wood on the rim sometimes in between hits,
Mhm.
the pick scrapes off the guitar, the
The mi-
fret noises,
the
like all these.
mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, the feel, as we jokingly called it in the studio.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all right, man. Just leave it on. That's got feel. That's got good feel. Just leave that
Mhm.
on, right? In fact, at the end of one of my songs, you hear this fret buzz from my bass, and it works perfectly. We
Mhm.
were like, oh shit, we got to go back and do that. Like, wait, no, it's in time, and the frequency is in pitch. Keep it. Keep it. Fuck it. Like it's just them little things, like so yeah, I think that aspect that, as much as there's gonna be the AI push, I'm saying 2030, that they're gonna be writing their own songs, there's gonna be AI bands, AI made movies, AI fucking poets, all that shit. There's gonna be little nanite drones flying around, giant fucking pillars of stone carving statues and shit. You know what I mean? But they're still gonna want to there's still gonna be like not a small market. I think a significant market that's still going to want to see humans do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, there you go, Aaron. Yeah, specialized goods, right? Like there's gonna be people that are like, I want home picked berry jam.
Right.
You know,
Artisanal art.
yeah, I want to see a blues power trio. I want to see, you know, I want to go and watch this guy in the town square come out and carve this statue, or paint this mural. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there will still be a need for that. I think, you know, the big fear though is like you guys hit. I wish we could get on it now, but like the UBI shit. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
mentioned it earlier in terms of like it's so hard for this discussion. Like because like again we look at it in modification and like your fucking actual literal survival.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas over in Western Europe or parts of Europe, like they subsidize like their education for artists. Like if you're growing up and you like show yourself to be, pretty competent at it at a young age, they'll back you. They'll support you on that. You know what I mean? Like here, you're lucky if your school district got one of those high school of the arts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you're lucky if you got one of them kind of tech high schools that lets you as an artist. Like I wish I had that shit growing up. I wish I had the ability from my high school not go to a fucking Catholic ass fucking Catholic school that Jack Posobiec went to, but yeah, we did. We went to the same high school. Not the same grades though.
Right.
Thank God. Yeah, he started there 4 years after I would have graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Because I transferred. But like that was a thing. They had a tech school. You know what I mean? Like, they like I said, they had a tech school like where you could go for auto body and cosmetology and electronics and electrical work and HVAC, but there was nothing for arts. You know what I mean? So it's like unless you were lucky to have one in that school district.
Mm-hmm.
So like here in this country and within our society, like we don't support every single career track out there.
Right.
Like we just don't, and that's why like that's why I do feel for the artists that are freaking out about the AI thing. Cause this is their work. You know what I mean? Like this is the work. And this is that ethical discussion of like, okay, what do we do with the people that used to do this? Like what happened? Like, what do we, like, what do we do with all the coal miners? Like once we switch over to like nuke power and solar,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like I don't think we toss them aside. I say we let them all retire early, give them pensions and help them go find something else if they choose to. If not, enjoy your retirement. You were a fucking coal miner. You deserve to chill.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you deserve to relax.
And that is like, that's why the joke of the spoiler alert, the problem is capitalism, is because cheat code is socialism, right? Like we already know what the answer is, the easy answer that if everyone would just get on board with that, then there wouldn't be any problem. You just do whatever the fuck you want. But because of that, like we have to talk about these things under the system as it exists now and whether or not those pressures will cause some fundamental change again across the board or whether they won't. And like there's some weird future AI driven slave state that we have, which again, I just don't understand why you would use people when you could use robots. It's just like go ahead.
Because well, I was gonna say because I think at this stage right now, Peter Thiel doesn't have enough of them fucking Silicon Valley bros locked up in that dark enlightenment shit.
Right.
Because I mean, they still see Silicon Valley as the purple blue haired, queers in San Francisco. That's how they still see it. That's literally how they still see it. They don't. They feel they don't have the cultural control, and they don't, and they never will. But they feel they don't have the cultural control over it to where they would then let Palantir just run ham on us, right? Because there's that fear of sabotage from within, especially based upon an ideological resistance, right? Like that's the one aspect that I think that is maybe saving our ass is that it is ideological. I think in terms because if you, what are tech workers other than youngers, right? Like I mean, there's Gen X tech workers still in Silicon Valley. Don't get me wrong, but a majority of they're all younger people,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know what I mean? And they tend to lean left. They tend to lean more towards anti-capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
or at least actively questioning it.
Yeah,
So
and that could be related. They could be having the same thoughts that I'm having. Is like because of the nature of what the future is looking like from their perspective, that they can see the limitations of capitalism and how that's going to affect us as a human species. So I don't know, but
I
I
also I
go
think
ahead.
real quick on the security.
Last thought.
Yeah, very very last thought. I think yeah, on this, I think on the security state thing, I think I might be missing something, but I
Hmm.
think one thing that could be saving us is the decentralized structure and nature of the judicial system,
Hmm.
because a lot of the individual policing choices that have to happen, such as the red light cameras and license plate readers and facial recognition technologies, have to happen on local levels. So
Hmm.
you're going to have the locals that do and the locals that don't. Right. So I think that unless all the counties across the United States were like, yeah, fucking Palantir, bring that shit in.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think we're somewhat safe. You know,
And
because of that, because of the political, unless we just go all top down. You know what I mean? Unless
yeah.
they just the feds are like, fuck it, we're calling it all. You know?
So again, the decentralized nature, like you say, like the police unions are going to be against automation of their jobs just the same as anybody else. So
Yeah.
like their structure as they've created it potentially is also helping us in that regard in a weird kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, that's at least. I mean, look, that's why we talked about that Moms for Liberty shit. You know, that's why they're
Yeah,
starting on all. That's why they're starting over like the Tea Party, starting from this, which is ironic because they're throwing out all the Tea Party people.
yeah, because
So
that's the way fascism works. Y'all aren't pure enough.
yeah,
It's been a pleasure again. I
absolutely.
hope to speak with you again in the future and have a good
Yeah,
one.
man. I'm gonna try and get streaming again soon. Might just wait till after New Year. I say that all the time, but we'll see.
I mean, we could tell that you enjoy talking to, a bunch of people. So,
Yeah, but it's just like you get to a point where it's like if you miss like like what happened to me was there was a snow like I missed research and then it was like oh fuck oh fuck oh fuck and it just snowballed into like you know I had
I,
other events going. And my parents came in town at the same time too, and I was just like I'm not going on today. I'm
yeah,
not going on today. And then since August, hi.
right. No, I completely get that. I look forward to your eventual hopeful return.
Yes, appreciate it, Globus. It's been a pleasure, and I'll check you soon.
All right, take care.
Later, buddy.